If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank LOTIERZO and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank LOTIERZO and Jack Hirsch.
And we're back. Welcome to Gloved Fist. My name is Frank LOTIERZO. Used to be a somewhat writer, now a full-time observer, joined by former 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association, Jack Hirsch. Jack, good evening. How are you?
Hey, good evening, Frank. I think there's a new line that could be used inappropriately, and people would accept it and like it. Maybe full-time critic of the sport, because the sport has enough wrong with it that people don't mind it getting attacked.
I could be okay, that'll work.
Yeah.
Full-time critic.
Full-time critic, I like that.
All right, that'll work.
Yeah.
We have a couple things to talk about. The Romero, or Rolly Romero and Teofimo Lopez. I see that AJ and Fury is supposed to be in November at MSG.
Yeah, it's going on and on. Now Dana White is complaining. You know, he said this fight should have taken place 10 years ago. He wasn't.
And he's correct.
10 years ago. Supposedly, from what's been said, Fury and Joshua have different contracts. Joshua's contract states that the fight must take place in the UK. Fury's contract doesn't. His Excellency, Turkey, he wants to fight at Madison Square Garden. Hearn and Joshua holding out for the UK. Now, my own personal opinion, I think
you want the UK
is grandstanding. Oh, of course, they'd rather it be in the UK, but they're doing it for improved terms on the contract. I think it is going to wind up at Madison Square Garden, because I'm going to tell you, if Joshua was adamant with Hearn, it's either the UK or no fight at all. Then we would have a resolution, Frank. We'd either know they're not fighting, or the other side, Turkey, would give in for the UK. But Hearn's saying, well, the contract has to then be redone if it's not in the UK, meaning more money. So I think they're completely grandstanding. As a New Yorker, I'll be happy if the fight's at Madison Square Garden. But if I live in the UK, I'd be furious. I would be absolutely furious if that took place. But we'll wait and we'll see. I know you're not crazy about the fight. You've went on record. It doesn't excite you at all. But as they get closer, Frank,
I'll watch it, Jack. It's just it doesn't have much significance to me.
Yeah,
I don't think it's not significant. It's just a fight. I mean, Joshua's not even ranked in the top 10.
But Frank, outside of Usyk and Moses Utama, is anyone else that relevant? If there was a rematch with Usyk and Rico Harrivan, it might have a little interest. Will Usyk do better the second time? Otama, Philippe Hrgovic. I mean, come on, Otama's going to win that fight. To me, that's not that interesting either. There's just not that much going on that's interesting in the heavyweight division outside of Usyk directly fighting Otama, and we know that's not going to happen next.
I agree, Jack. Again, it's brand, it's names. Two guys that have had a claim to being the best heavyweight in the world at different times over the last 10 years. Style contrast, they're both at the end of their career, but it's going to be who has more left.
You have to answer this question, Frank. I know Joe Bergman, you know him better. Watching the Phillies and you guys at the same time, you have my undivided attention. The Phillies aren't that bad. Why? What does he mean we have his undivided attention?
Joe, Jack, what the funny thing is too? Yeah. And I'm not going to count Joe among these people.
We love Joe Bergman.
But when the Phillies were really bad, and I think they were 5-15 at one point, these fans were killing them. It's like, oh, they suck. They're not going anywhere. And now here they are. they're in the thick of it again, like they always are. And it's like now everybody's back on the bandwagon. Jack, do you realize in about, let's say, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, we're going to have the Phillies in the heat of a pennant race. Okay. We're going to have the Eagles starting their season. We're going to have the Flyers coming back after them going further than they ever did or than they were expected to. And they have for like the last 5 or 6 years. And we're going to have the Sixers with LeBron James. Do you know what this town is going to be like? Talk about, it's like, it'll be brutal. It'll be brutal. And the Sixers will be on every weekend. It's just too much. It's too much for somebody like me to handle.
And you know it's going to get lost in the shuffle that Philadelphia conceivably is going to have the #1 fighter pound for pound in the world a year. So from now, 1-2 years from now, he's on track for it. He might not get there. In Boots Ennis, who's going to probably be having his next fight in Philadelphia, okay, against Josh Kelly. In all probability, it's going to take place, probably in November, late October, so on. But they're kind of
that's a good question, Jack. I'm trying to think, and Russell would have a better feel for this than either one of us. But it's like I'm trying to think, who was the last Philadelphia fighter that this city really got behind? I don't think it was Bernard Hopkins. So if we go back before that, would it be Saad? Jeff Chandler? I think you have to go back that far before you can think about.
Benny Driscoll.
But Jack, that's the same era though. That's going back, that's going back to the 70s basically. So who since the 80s? Saad was an early 80s fighter. I always considered Kwawi, even though he lived, he's from Camden.
Considered a Philly fighter.
I considered him a Philly fighter. And I also looked at Michael Spinks as a Philly fighter because he trained here.
No. Michael Spinks lived in the fancy high-rise building in another part of town. Russell had told me the street guys, that's who they related to. Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, who was from Brooklyn because he fought in Philly, was considered more of a Philly fighter.
Now, see, I never thought of him as a Philly guy.
That's a great question.
I'm going to say, and Russell, if I'm wrong, hit me up and let me know. But I'm going to say the last Philly fighter that had a huge following was probably, and I don't mean that they fought at the Spectrum, because I know if Jeff Chandler fought at the Spectrum, it was big. But a national following, maybe it was Saad.
No, it was Bernard Hopkins. No, Hopkins, everyone looked at
Jack,
Hopkins.
he was a big-time Philly fighter. But I don't remember much going on in Philly for him. All the big fights he won, I don't remember too much of a fuss being made.
There were no big fights in Philly because everyone was going to Atlantic City.
To the casinos back then, yeah.
And Atlantic City was what? You tell me, like about an hour and a half away from Philly by car.
That's stretching it. It's a little less than that, actually.
A little less. Okay. So the fans in Philly could make the trip. It wasn't that far out of their way. So I would say and even New York, when Hopkins beat Trinidad, it was in New York. He fought at New York other times. There's nothing like the Philadelphia.
You know what's going to hurt Boots, Jack, is because and this isn't just the Philadelphia, but newspapers really don't cover boxing anymore. Where when Saad was fighting and Hopkins to a degree, it's like it was, when Bernard Fernandez was the guy, and before him, Elmer Smith, and then, Russell talks about the guys before that, Cushman and Hockman. But with no papers covering it, it's like, how many guys really know about Boots? They know about him on social media, but it's just not the same.
You know how they're going to start promoting things with Boots now? They'll have him meeting LeBron, that, if the Sixers are off that night, they'll all go to the fight, and there'll be a following developing his appeal. It kind of happened a little bit with Errol Spence in Texas with the Dallas Cowboys. taking a big
It happened a
interest.
little bit with Bernard Hopkins and Donovan McNabb, but they didn't get along, so it didn't really flourish.
Yeah, what's this to Hopkins? I was once with him in private, and he criticized Donovan McNabb.
He didn't think he was a winner.
What was it? But yeah,
But that was basically it, Jack. He didn't think he was a winner. But I heard that McNabb big time Hopkins somewhere along the line. And Hopkins is one of those guys. He doesn't forget that kind of stuff. And he carried that. So I think that was probably a part of the issue.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But Philly is a fight town. You don't have the smallest shows there. Of course, you don't have the Blue Horizon. And I guess it's like that, kind of like all over. It's just like the bigger events. There are a number of club shows, don't get me wrong. But even Las Vegas, a buddy of mine asked me a few days ago, what big fights are coming out in Las Vegas? I said, well, Lopez and Rally Romero. But he said, what other big fights? And I told him, well, there's still big fights, just not nearly as many as before. I mean, 20 years ago, for example, 25 years ago, whatever, you put a timetable on it, Fury and Joshua, if it wasn't going to take place in the UK, it would have taken place in Vegas. It wasn't going to take place at the Garden. But it's a change.
But Jack, here's how things have changed, though. And this is just like a local story, but it just says so much. Back in 1973, 74, when I really got the urge to box, there was nowhere. I mean, if I wanted to find a ring, I would say the closest ring was at Frazier's Gym, which meant I had to drive through Cherry Hill, through Camden, over the Ben Franklin Bridge to Broad Street, down Broad Street to the gym. Okay, so when I got my license in 75, they had just opened the Cherry Hill Pal, and that was the only place where there was a ring where you could box, and Joey Giardello was the main trainer there. And so I started there, but there were only like 5 or 6 guys there. So then eventually he said, look, he goes, if you really want to do this seriously, you have to go to Philly. And then he called up Benton and he sent me to Philly. But so my point is, back then, Jack, if a kid wanted to see a boxing ring, forget about anything else. If he just wanted to see what a boxing ring looked like, he had to go to Philly until the Cherry Hill Pal opened. Today, I live in Cherry Hill, and I'll bet you there are at least 7 or 8 rings within a 12-mile radius of my house without going over the bridge. And it's all because of MMA, because now they have the ring and they have the cage all in the same gym. So they promote these places as fitness and boxing and MMA. Right. So it's like, it's amazing that there's so much more access to it today because of MMA, but there are just so many less fighters.
And less trainers. I mean, in the past, you could vouch at Joe Frazier's gym. You had a guy like a Georgie Benton. Does anyone exist like that? Hardly anymore. There's some good trainers around. Don't get me wrong. But there was
there were 10 guys in there that were noteworthy at every turn, and I'm not counting Yank Dermott or Eddie Fudge.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at, they were pure boxing gyms at the time. Now it's join the boxing gym and get physically fit. In the past, It was assumed anyone who worked out was going to be fit. They had to be fit. They went there to be a fighter. They didn't go there to take boxing to just get into shape. Speaking of, I want to just mention at the top of the show, so it doesn't get by. I don't know whether it was mentioned last week, just Flo Anthony, Mike Spink's significant other, passed away, a couple of weeks ago. Really, really close with Michael, obviously. And before she was married to him, she was his publicist and his significant other for a lot of years. And after they knew one another 40 years, she passed away. I knew she'd been in extremely ill health for a while, but she was an amazing person outside of Michael Spinks. She did PR for like Sal Mambi, Larry Holmes, Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, so many different fighters. I mean,
wasn't she a gossip columnist too for Page 6?
on page 6 of the Post. That's what she's primarily known for, and she's primarily known for association with Michael Spinks. But she had an amazing background in boxing. I mean, otherwise, with all the fighters like she dealt with, and she even set up a reading program for fighters because it bothered her how illiterate they were. And I'm going to tell you, I think I experienced this with 2 former Hall of Famers, I was going to say champions, Hall of Champions, but who are Hall of Famers. I happened to have the privilege of having dinner with them in this very small group, and they sat next to me. And I'm not going to say publicly who they were. Neither of them is alive now, but I still don't want to say it. I'll tell you in private, Frank, another time if you want to know. But both of them asked me to order for them. They had the menu. They asked me to order for them, and I found it strange because they had the menu. And I said, well, what type of food do you like? What do you want me to get? They said, get me something that's really good. And I used to hear that, and I think it was written in Tom House's book about Muhammad Ali, that Ali most liked to order like from a buffet because it was obvious. He didn't have to look at the menu and make a decision. So fighters like a buffet. But these 2 champions, I thought later maybe they couldn't read, but I didn't think that way at the time.
How old were they?
They were well retired.
I mean, were they over 50?
Yeah.
Did you see, and I think you know this person, did you see the article about Heather Hardy?
I did, but
that broke my heart.
It breaks your heart. I don't know Heather Hardy. I never remember speaking to her, having any interaction with her. I would see her fights and I would follow her fights and report on them, but I never had an interaction with Heather Hardy. But it's a question, fighters are fighting too long. I mean, and referees don't know when to stop fights. You know, I'm getting the feeling, Frank, the majority of referees are borderline incompetent. They don't know when to stop fights. Their criteria is as long as someone can defend themselves and punch back, they let a fight continue, regardless of how much punishment. Doctors, I'm starting to get the feeling that these guys are borderline incompetent to be ringside physicians, a lot of them. They don't know when to stop fights. Cornermen are obviously that way. And you can't leave it up to the fighter themselves. But I'm going to tell you, any fighter who decides they don't want to fight anymore, they've taken too many punches, not only are they not acquitted to me, they're darn courageous to make that decision. Kudos to them for taking it in their own hands.
Well, if you think about it, if you tap out in MMA, you're not looked down on. In boxing, if you tap out, which is basically resigning, it's a bad, it's a blemish, and people call you a quitter. And the risk is just as bad. It's like if I don't tap out, somebody breaks my arm. In boxing, if I don't tap out, I get brain damage. That's even worse. An arm will heal.
I've been guilty of it myself. I should take a list of the referees, who foul up things and judges, and just not say bad ref call, a bad decision. The names should be accountable. The referee in the Case Scott Clarissa Shields fight was awful. I don't want this guy I never want to see him again as a ref. After Case Scott took a bad beating, was knocked.
That left hook was awesome. That was devastating.
He called it a knockdown when she fell against the ropes, which was the proper call, but the fight should have been stopped there. Why is he letting her continue to get battered? Because she still isn't defenseless per se.
Right.
I mean, and I told you the story before. I saw this fight a few years ago at the Turning Stone Casino in Verona, New York, and one fighter took a beating all fight. And I wanted the fight stopped for rounds. And finally, that fighter gets knocked out in the last round. And I saw the referee the next day who I knew. And I said, look, I'm not going to write about it this time, but I want to talk about what happened. And he said, I wanted to give the kid every chance to come back. And I said to the ref, what you gave the kid was every chance to get permanently injured. and for these punches to have a lifetime negative effect on him. That's what you did there. And the ref happened to like me a lot, so he didn't like argue per se, but he said I thought I was doing him a favor by letting him, giving him every chance.
Jack, the problem is there's so much riding on the outcome of the bigger fights with a win and a loss. I can see where a referee can actually, he doesn't want to be the guy to cost the fighter a career payday, a title shot, or a shot for an elimination bout. And it's like there's just so much on the line, and it's just such a fine line of when to stop it and when to let it go. I mean, you have to know the fighter. And like some guys, Jack, can take it and come back. We've seen that many times. Then we see a fight like Mike Dokes and Mike Weaver, and Joey Carter stops it in 1 minute 3 seconds, which was a joke.
Ridiculous. No, I agree with that. But there's certain fights in which the chance of a fighter staging a miracle comeback are so tiny. Now, it happens once in a while. And people are going to point out, look at Diego Corrales against Jose Luis Castillo. Let's say the ref had stopped the fight, Tony Weeks, who, by the way, is a terrible referee now. He's turned into a dreadful referee. But that, in my opinion, that's beside the point. That's even a fight that should have gotten stopped when Corrales was on the ground and twice spit out his mouthpiece. It should have been stopped. But of course, you're going to get a sensational comeback once in a while. Look, certain fights you can't stop, no matter how brutal they are. Like the first Ali Frazier fight, obviously you can't stop that fight at any point in the fight. But for the most part,
there are points of the Gaddy Ward fights that could have been stopped.
Yeah. Oh, well, we had Michael Schwartz on as a guest here, and he, to his credit, Dr. Michael Schwartz, the head ringside physician in Connecticut, when they had their first fight there, to his credit, and I'm proud of him for this, he said he should have stopped the fight. And in fact, he said they did stop it at the end of the 9th round. And then the referee, Frank Cappuccino, waved them both to come out. And, Gaddy lasted the round, even won it, but that didn't make it right, per se. What happens if Gaddy collapsed at that point? But I'm not even talking about that. It's the cumulative punishment, the unnecessary punishment they're taking. If it's a close fight that's going back and forth, I get it. I get it, Frank.
But it's one-sided.
But exactly. Usually these one-sided fights allowed to continue on, way past the point where it should. And the outcome's inevitable. And it ends in the way, it ends in a one-sided fashion.
I would never want to be a referee, Jack, because of all that responsibility. And I know personally, hello, Randy Gordon. I know personally that I would be a slow hook. I would be the guy, because the last thing I'd want is that fighter look at me and say, Frank, I wasn't hurt. I was letting him punch himself out. I knew where I was. You robbed me a title shot or whatever. It's like this fight was huge, could have been altering to my career. It's like, I would hate to be the guy to make that decision. And I'm afraid, knowing myself, I probably might be a little slow on the draw. That's why I never tried to be a referee.
Yeah, I mean, Randy Rhodes, an elite guy, a ref, knows the right time to stop. Now, how many refs are elite? Come on. Look, even the best of refs, Randy, allowing these fights to go on too long. I'm going to give you like a case in point of a fight. Now, I don't even remember who the ref was for this fight, Frank. And I'm going back a lot of years. Oscar De La Hoya, Manny Pacquiao. De La Hoya was taking so many head-snapping punches. I don't know how that's going to affect him later. That fight went on 2-3 rounds too long. And I don't want to hear, well, you had to give Oscar a chance to come back. Yeah, there's always a possibility he could have. I get that. But the chances of him suffering long-term damage are so much greater than him staging any comeback.
And the way he acts now, there's a good case that he already has.
Yeah, and you
Just kidding.
no, but you look, yeah, Oscar really hasn't shown the effects of it yet,
No,
but it does show up. I mean, and it's heartbreaking. I mean,
but
Biden,
Jack, it's the nature of this sport. How many guys at the elite level, and we all know their names, how many guys got out of it at the right time?
but I don't know. But Frank, it's not a question of how good you could fight. You mentioned before you were talking about the Philadelphia sports, the Philadelphia 76ers. As long as LeBron James can perform, what's his risk of continuing to play until, let's say, he's 55? I'm giving you a crazy age. He won't go 13 more years. Let's say age 50, hypothetically. 8 more years. And you want to know something? LeBron James is such an amazing athlete. He might be able to hold a spot on the bench when he's 50 years old.
Jack, I've always said that, but that's the nature of boxing because
LeBron, what's the worst that's going to happen to LeBron James if he hangs on too long?
he looks like he embarrasses himself a little bit.
Okay,
That's all.
That's the worst. He's not going to suffer. I'm not talking about his joints, his legs, his knees. That's not going to affect. Well, I don't want to get into. I was going to say that won't affect his quality of life as much, but yeah. Oh, thanks, Randy. Oh, Tony Weeks. I don't even blame Tony Weeks, Randy, for Manny and Oscar. I blame Oscar's corner. I mean, I mean, it should have been pulled out. I blame the ringside position. Should have pulled Oscar out. Too many head snapping blows.
But Jack, again, it's the nature of the sport. I mean, what can they do? What can they do if they can make the guys fight with 12-ounce gloves? They can make them wear headgear. Nobody's going to do that.
Kay Scott was allowed to take extra punches against Clarissa Shields. She was beaten up. Her corner threw in the towel eventually. Look, it could have been worse. It could have been worse. They could have waited a little longer. I get it. I've seen worse than that corner. So I don't want to criticize the corner per se, but they should have been quicker to stop it. You pull a fighter out that's getting beaten up. Hey, let's talk about your favorite guy, one of your favorite smoking Jogan's Jimmy Ellis in the first fight. Angelo Dundee didn't allow him to come out for the 5th round. Dundee knew the chances of Ellis coming back were virtually nil. Of course, there's always a chance of a miracle. He lands a right hand the minute between rounds. Most trainers would have allowed Ellis to come out. What would have happened if Ellis was allowed to come out? In all probability, within a minute and a half, 2 minutes, he would have been down again. He would have been stopped in the 5th round.
He would have been counted out.
Yeah, okay. But he would have taken some savage punches additionally in the meantime. Dundee knew where to draw the line. He gave his fighter every reasonable possibility.
But Jack, I don't know if that's a good example though, because Ellis was really out of it, and he thought he'd only been knocked down one time.
Well, that's just after the fight.
But in the corner, Dundee said that he just wasn't answering questions and reacting well.
Yeah, and I'm not even. But yeah, I know what you're saying, Randy, about Tony Perez. But I'm not holding it against Tony Perez, let's say the Ray Mercer, Tommy Morrison fight, because that wasn't, I mean, Perez was slow to stop that fight, don't get me wrong, okay? But that wasn't cumulative punishment because Morrison wasn't taking a lot of punches till the very end, till the final burst of blows, okay? But where I will criticize a guy like Tony Perez, and this drives me crazy. Oh, and we should have talked about this at the top of the show. I'm apologizing for myself and for you, Frank, for not acknowledging Pritchard Colon passing away. We should have done that at the top of the show. An apology from both Frank and myself on that. And what could have caused Pritchard Colon's demise was rabbit punching. And the worst refereeing job I ever saw was
Wetner.
That's ridiculous. And I'm going to tell you, I mean, I remember the late Bob Duffy, who was a close friend in the mid-1990s, late 1990s. There was a show up at Saratoga Springs. Duffy was with the commission. He was good in this way, as was Randy. You know, they allowed us to talk to officials or whatever. And Duffy took me to an official after the fight who I wasn't happy with the official's work. I forgot the fight. It was a non-televised show. He was allowing rabbit punches. And the referee was talking to me, said, well, I didn't do anything about it because all it was light taps. I said, that's not for you to judge how hard it is. He's hitting behind the head. It's illegal.
It's a foul.
It's illegal, and you have to put a stop to it immediately. You know, and I kind of chastised the referee. It was an upstate referee. He didn't really want to talk to me. He did it upon Duffy's request, but that's outrageous. Rabbit punching, I wouldn't tolerate it, okay? You know what I would do, Frank? Everyone knows, every fighter knows he should rabbit punch. Let the referee say it beforehand during the instructions. I'm going to have no tolerance for rabbit punching. First rabbit punch behind the head, no warning. No warning. You call, you take a point away. Second time, you maybe disqualify him. Well, Cooney Norton,
that's another one.
You wanted Perez to get in there sooner. Yeah, I understand, Randy, what you're saying. Cooney was devastating that fight. This is something
I think Perez was also the ref in this fight, but I can't blame him. Wasn't he the ref in the Tua Ruiz fight too?
Well, I was at that fight in Atlantic City.
I was too. That was Night of the Young Heavyweights.
But that was a 19-second KO. I mean,
right, but he had the knack of being in those fights, is what my point.
Yeah, which got me to think a second. Randy mentions the Cooney Norton fight. Now, even hypothetically, let's say they had a guy like myself in there, hypothetically, and let's make believe I had the perfect judgment when to stop the fight. Cooney was such a powerful guy. Yeah, I'm getting the feeling for referees, maybe we got to recruit linemen, guys who can physically get in there.
Cooney really ripped those hooks off.
But some referees some referees can't physically get in there. I mean, they try to, but if Cooney is unloading and he has a guy in the corner and you're trying to get around him to stop the fight, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to grab Cooney from behind, jump on his back. Maybe his opponent hits him back in the meantime. I mean,
and the fact that Norton didn't go down right away, he sagged slowly, which made it worse because Cooney was getting free shots in. So I'm not going to. Perez was late there, but it's like that was a tough situation. But he was definitely late there.
What do you think, Emil Griffith, Benny Kid, Perret? Ruby Goldstein was the ref. Ruby Goldstein was considered one of the greatest referees.
Elite referees, right.
Yeah, but his reputation was hurt with that fight. Griffith got Perret in the corner, and he unleashed
he let that go too long.
Yeah.
I've only seen the films of it, but to me, I guess you can't be fair knowing the fact afterwards. But to me, that when he went too long, what Griffith get like 12 punches in?
A bunch of them. Okay, but talking about Frank, getting off that topic, this weekend's fight, Teofimo Lopez, Raleigh Romero. Teofimo Lopez is one of my favorite fighters. Known him personally. He's a great guy. Love him and his dad. You know what makes me happy? That Teofimo is true to his word. He took the monster challenge against Lomachenko. He fought Shakur Stevenson when no one else wanted to do it. He stepped up, and he also stepped up this way. He's not a hypocrite. He said before Shakur Stevenson, well, why don't you fight Keyshawn Davis? There are no friends in boxing. You fight anyone. I don't care who it is. Him and Raleigh Romero reportedly are extremely
close. Buddies too, right?
Are buddies, close buddies. They know one another's family well. There's no trash talking. And Teofimo says, kudos to you, Raleigh. You understand there are no friends in boxing. I love you. We could be buddies afterwards, but it doesn't matter for this fight. In boxing, the best have to fight the best. And, and maybe Raleigh Romero didn't have as much of a choice, whatever, but Teofimo's backing the word up. And you know what I like too? The one loss to Shakur Stevenson isn't going to hurt Teofimo's career if he wins this next fight. He's going to be back as a big-time player in the sport, big fights are going to await him. Maybe he fights Devin Haney next or whatever. And same with Rolly Romero. If Romero
he's fighting everybody. He's not taking any easy ways, easy route.
But you wonder with Romero, he had less options to pick and choose.
True.
Because after he beat, Ryan Garcia, he just the big fight didn't get there.
You've said this before. It's amazing that Ryan Garcia never mentions that fight and wants to settle the score. Never even talks about it. And I actually think Romero should actually chirp about it more to try to embarrass him into maybe fighting. But Ryan Garcia won't do that.
But isn't that, if you're Romero, what does that do for your dignity? You beat the guy soundly and you're calling him out for a rematch? There's something about it. It should be the opposite way. I remember what Dan Duva said after Pernell Whitaker had that draw with Julio Cesar Chavez. Whitaker was their guy. He said, we're treating this like a victory. So you know what they did? They started trying to get a rematch with Chavez. That's not treating it like a victory. You know how you treat it like a victory? If you're Whitaker,
you just move on.
I have no interest in a rematch. I
already beat him.
Better than this guy. I don't have to beat him again. I mean, I'm not wasting my time. And then you could give him a dig and you could say, look, he's not as good as I thought he was. No sense going over old ground. I'll just slap him around again. I don't think people are interested in that fight. So
I would love to see, no, I can't say I would love to see him win because I like Teofimo also. I like Rolly Romero also. I kind of liked it. He's a former judo guy. I don't really have a rooting interest in this fight. I really don't. I mean, I guess it's better for business and there are bigger fights if Teofimo wins, but maybe not.
We can have Teofimo on as a guest on this show afterwards at some point, he himself. So let's root for him, root for him to win in that sense. But
Jack, you go and get the father on. You can't get the son on. You haven't had Teofimo on.
I haven't, but I know I can get the son on,
All right.
I'll get the son on.
All right, so we both are going to pick Teofimo. Does he stop him or is it a decision?
The only thing that bothers me about Teofimo, has he lost a little bit of an edge? Has he become too civilized? I didn't like the way he looked against Shakur Stevenson, and him and his dad were arguing. And according to Teofimo, his dad brought in another guy to work with him, and they tried to fight in the Mike Tyson style as the puncher against Shakur. And he said that's not his natural thing. It just didn't work. To me, no excuses. Shakur is the greatest shutdown artist in boxing.
But
they shut
Jack,
down a guy's style.
In all fairness, though, when Teofimo fights Shakur, he has to fight as the puncher because there's no other way out. He can't fight as the counter puncher or the boxer because he loses at every corner. He has to beat him physically and try to force himself on Shakur physically. He wasn't able to do it, but that was the only chance he had. He definitely wasn't going to win trying to wait and react or counter.
No, I get what you're saying there. But the opportunities, I have to think for both guys. If Teofimo wins, you're talking about Devin Haney is the most logical opponent. I mean, that would be an excellent matchup to make. Maybe Keyshawn Davis takes the fight with Teofimo. You kind of like wonder, all the different possibilities going on. I'm going to say this. Keyshawn Davis, as much as I was critical of him in the last show, turning down the offer to fight Devin Haney for over $2 million, it might turn out to be a good business decision. It might.
I said that last week, Jack.
No. But my criticism of him was this. You're calling out all these fighters. No one wants to fight you. You're boasting all your talk. And Devin Haney steps to the plate. I'll fight you. And if you beat Devin Haney, you're a pound-for-pound claimant. You truly are a star. It's not just your potential. He'd truly be a star. Fight him. It's a little over $2 million.
But Jack, I don't take these guys serious on what they say all the time. We know what they're doing.
But Lennox Lewis was the one guy who believed and backed it up. When Riddick Bowe was ducking him, they wanted to lowball Lennox Lewis. He said, I'll take whatever. I just want to beat this guy. Let me get it out of the way.
But that's an anomaly, Jack. We like that and love that, but it's like not many guys do that. We know what Keyshawn Davis was doing. We know that. And I'll say this too. Speaking of Haney, I happened to catch an interview the other night with his father. He's tough to take. Oh, is he tough to take? Oh, my Lord, is he tough to take? What was he talking? He was talking about he wants to get Terrence Crawford to come out of retirement and fight his son. I would love to see that. I would love to see it. It's not going to happen, but I'd love to see it.
If Crawford's in the gym actually helping Lester Martinez,
right?
Who's from his gym, who's going to be fighting in a couple of weeks. And reportedly, Crawford is even sparring a little, to help his friend. Now, he likes Lester Martinez a lot because I don't know whether you remember this, Frank. Lester Martinez fought Christian Mabili on the undercard of Crawford's fight against Canelo. And the camera scanned in the dressing room, and I
remember that.
Crawford watching the fight intently. He was into the fight. Even though he had his big fight later, Crawford is that type of guy. He takes a big interest in his stablemates and his friends. I mean, he's kind of like a big brother, a mentor. It means a lot to him. So he really wants his guy to win. Even Amir Khan was in the Crawford camp for a little amount of time. And when Amir Khan fought Kell Brook in England, he asked Crawford, would you make the trip to watch me fight? And Crawford actually made the trip. I mean, he made the trip even to Australia. He wanted to root on Errol Spence.
But and that started the rumors that maybe Crawford's going to come back because he's been sparring, but I don't think he's going to.
Crawford, if he comes back, he's going to be a loser for coming back. I'm going to tell you why.
I agree. I don't want him to come back.
He can win his fights, but the extra punishment he's going to be taking, you can't win. The only way Crawford should possibly come back if some way, somehow, he blew his money, he didn't pay taxes, and he badly needs the money. It needs to come back for the money. That would be the only way. The only way, Frank.
That would be tragic. But, Jack, I still would love to see Crawford knock the hell out of both Haney and Ryan Garcia. But not going to happen.
Well, everyone.
And if he came back, he'd never fight below 160.
Let me tell you why Crawford is in demand. He wasn't in demand before he beat Canelo. No, they didn't want to fight him because they all knew, no one wanted any part of Crawford. But when you get to a certain status,
now there's a lot to gain.
A lot of money in there, too. A lot of money, meaning even the worst that'll happen. They think they're going to lose the fight, but they're going to get some life-altering money in between. If Crawford were to come back, his next fight, logically speaking, really should be against Canelo, I would think. I wouldn't want him to go in against Boots unless he was sharp, not coming off of, a layoff, a retirement. And you want to know something? Canelo has kind of earned the rematch if it were to take place. Canelo has had a glorious enough of a career where I can't begrudge Canelo getting the rematch. And the fight was competitive. It wasn't a blowout by any means.
There was no rematch clause. Crawford spoke about that. I don't think he fights again, Jack. I hope he's one of the guys like Calzaghe, like Ward, like Mayweather, got out with the O at the right time with his health, his wealth.
We don't know. You don't know till years down the road whether you got out at the right time. I hate to say it. You can just.
But if I had to say, though, watching Crawford's career, this is the best time. He couldn't walk away after Spence.
A guy like Andre Ward, I think he walked away at the right time. I personally think he'll be fine. That's my opinion. A guy like Errol Spence who says, "Oh, I'm leaving with all my marbles." I hope so.
Well, that's today.
I
Let's
hope
see down the
so.
road.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what these guys don't get. It's hard to walk away. I remember Angelo Dundee telling me he never tells guys to retire because there's nothing like being a fighter, the excitement, the juice, the whole bit. I get that. You know, when you leave it, you're no longer special the same. You don't feel special the same way.
Timothy Bradley was talking about that earlier this week. I saw he was saying like how he goes, you know, hey, I think it was on Andre Ward's podcast, and they were talking, and they just said, look, man, what gives you that juice like that? And they both said, look, there's nothing like it.
No, there's nothing like it. But at least Bradley and Ward have commentators' jobs. They have some type of visibility. That's really important too. Like we talk football, and you look at these coaches. Look at a guy like a Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin, as a coach, is the equivalent of like being a great champion in boxing, right? You could call Tomlin one of the greats, okay? Tomlin steps away from coaching. Let's say that's his retirement. We don't know what he's going to do. Tomlin can be in the broadcast booth doing games. He doesn't even have to be the main announcer. The idea that he'll be around.
Well, he did get a job with one of the networks, didn't he?
Right. But that gives him a certain juice or whatever, a certain excitement being part of it.
And I think he'll do well.
Yeah, well, definitely. Have you heard anything at all about one of your favorite fighters, Money Mayweather? His fight with Pacquiao, is it coming off or what? What the heck?
It's not coming off, Jack.
Oh, wait. It was supposed to be late September. Now at this point, and you're talking.
We're 2 weeks away from September, and not a word.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get it. If it is, I mean, if they were going to fight, you think they would build up to it. It would be really newsworthy, whatever.
Oh, absolutely, Jack. That's why you know it's not happening. And from what I understand, it's because Mayweather wants an exhibition and Pacquiao wants a sanctioned fight.
But they signed a contract reportedly that it's got
reportedly.
But
do you buy reportedly? I don't. How many things have been reportedly that fall through? Wasn't Tyson and Mayweather supposed to do something too? That fell through. So reportedly they signed that they were going to meet in some type of exhibition.
Tyson and Jake Paul came off.
Well, we know Jake because of Jake Paul.
Do you think that Jake Paul kind of eased off in the Tyson fight? Other people are saying Tyson's the one who didn't want to knock out Jake Paul. But you know better. Do you think Jake Paul eased off because he really admires Tyson and likes him?
I don't think he eased off. I just think he didn't want to take chances, Jack, and he just ran the clock out. And he didn't want to take chances.
A little bit of an understanding, kind of like in the movie Rocky Balboa. Remember Balboa said he doesn't want to get mangled. That'll never happen. And there was like an understanding or something. You know, you kind of wonder a little bit.
I just think Paul, once he had it under control, I think he didn't want to do anything stupid. I don't think it was fixed. A lot of people, I don't think it was. Tyson was just about 60 years old when that happened. I know, being in that age range, how much less I am. Can you imagine Mike Tyson? I mean, I remember when Joe Frazier was in his 60s, I think I'd knock the hell out of him now. He was an old man, a fragile old man. Tyson's not fragile, but he's not Mike Tyson anymore. He's a 60-year-old man.
Yeah, well, you know, we're going to have a guest on next week. I know you don't always see eye to eye with his views, and you could disagree with them on the show all you want. I'm good with that. But I just want people to know, just promoting our show, John Scully, former light heavyweight contender. He's Arthur Better Beef's, one of his Arthur Better Beef's trainer. So we're going to want to find out what's going on with Arthur Better Beef. Is he fighting Dimitri Bivol next? And in different ways, John's involved in boxing. He's going to be our guest next week, Frank. And you could give him any view you want. You haven't always seen eye to eye with Scully, you know, and I would say that next week. So, but John Scully's going to be our guest. You got
Okay.
Frank. Any response to that, Frank?
We'll see if I'm here next week.
Yeah, you'll be here. You always show
Don't
up.
bet on it, Jack. Don't
Yeah.
bet on it.
You're like Billy Chappell. Did you see that movie For Love of Game?
No.
Oh, you didn't know? Billy Chappell, the pitcher, he comes late. He has had a 19-year career as a Tiger pitcher, and the manager's out in the bullpen, and he's annoyed. He said, I didn't know who I was going to use to pitch. How am I, if you weren't going to show? And he said, in 19 years, have I never not shown? He said to the manager, and the manager said, there's always, he said, that's true until you don't show. Okay, so that's with that. But
Romero fights this weekend, right?
Hayden, oh, wait. Yeah, Hayden Panettiere, how do you say her name?
You said it right.
Yeah, it's in the news, tragically, passed away. And they say it's natural causes.
Well, the latest news I saw, it's not natural causes.
Right. Well, at that young
age,
they
think there was some drug issues there. She was in treatment a lot.
It's an absolute.
She's only 36 years old. It's tragic.
It's tragic, and her marriage to begin with to Vladimir Klitschko.
They were never married, Jack.
Are you sure they would never marry?
I don't think they had a child together, but they never exchanged vows.
Wow, because I thought they had. Okay,
I thought she called it off right before that. I mean, I'm pretty sure of that. Obviously, I could be wrong, but from what I remember, they were never husband and wife.
Right, but him living in Ukraine and her, in the United States.
They have an 11-year-old daughter together.
Yeah. Wow. But it's terrible news, and even though Vladimir's not with her, it's there. He looks after their daughter, and it's condolences.
Speaking of guys getting out the right time, did he get out the right time?
You want to know something? From an artistic viewpoint, yes. From taking punches, he could have left 5 fights earlier. In all honesty, no, he wasn't taking beating. But you spar, Frank. If you have hard sparring sessions, they take a toll on you. Hard sparring sessions if you're going to get hit a lot.
But
I don't know whether he did or didn't.
He didn't take many beatings in his career, Jack.
The Joshua fight.
The Joshua fight is the one fight, and he was like 38 years old there. So that if there's one that's going to hurt him, it's that. But I mean, Fury and him didn't touch each other.
Well, look early in his career. I mean, he got stopped.
Ross Purity, he got tired. He was winning that fight.
Lamont Brewster,
and he was winning that fight, and it just fell apart in the 4th round. Corey Sanders dropped him twice in the first and twice in the second and stopped him. He took some big shots in that fight.
I was in Atlantic City when he outpointed Samuel Peter. Technically, he got knocked down 3 times.
3 times.
The whole fight. Yeah.
Yeah, he won every minute of the fight except for the knockdowns.
Yeah, with Klitschko, it's arguable.
How about his brother? I think Vitaly got out the right time too.
Yeah.
Listen, Jack, the only time he ever got punched a lot was against Lennox Lewis. Chris Berg burnt him with some feather shots and was coming on, but he had a torn rotator cuff, and that's why he had to pull out of that fight. So the point is, Jack, it's very rare. And if you think about heavyweights, it's really rare. I mean, Lennox Lewis got out the right time. Larry Holmes didn't. I mean, you could make a case George Foreman did and didn't.
Floyd Patterson didn't.
No.
Okay. He took some, and Jerry
Usyk will get out the right time, even if he loses his next fight.
Jimmy Ellis didn't. Ali certainly didn't. I mean, we could point to a lot of guys. Ernie Shea.
It's so much harder to point to the guys that did get out the right time. Maybe Jeffries, Tunney.
Yeah.
If we're going heavyweights, Marciano. Who else?
Maybe Dempsey.
He had a lot of fights, but he didn't take beatings. So
before the
maybe, and you know, Jack, I think he lived to be like what, 83? and I think he
With
was okay.
84, so yeah.
Right. So I mean, he didn't go out with a win, but he didn't take a sustained beating in his last couple fights. Tony dropped him and outboxed him, but
Sometimes a fight, it defies the odds. Like Max Schmeling, he lived to 99, and Max Schmeling, you know, he was in his good shot, tough fights. But if you look at this stat, Frank, and this is a scary stat, not one former champion lived to be 100. And you're not going to tell me if they didn't box at all that a few of them wouldn't have hit that 100 mark.
Jack, how many people live to be 100? How many baseball players live to be 100?
Yeah, but
that's a hell of a measure.
Okay, I got you there. Carlos Ortiz, he lived to age 85, but I know at the end he had no memory as far as his past opponents went. Because
but Jack, but most people 85, you could say that never boxed. I mean, well, I have plenty of relatives that lost their marbles that never boxed, but when they were in their 80s, they started to forget who they were.
Yeah, I remember the big fights in the fighters, but I went to so many shows. I don't remember the vast majority of fights.
I don't remember stuff like I used to before.
I go through my files and everything from fights like 25, 30 years ago. No recollection at all in the slightest, you know. And that's how it is. I could cover a show off TV, and then you're going to ask me 3-4 months later. I'm not going to remember, unless it's the main event. I'm going to remember fights, for example, Shakur Stevenson, Teofimo Lopez. I'll remember the big fights. I'll always remember those.
But you did one tonight, Jack, that until you said it, I forgot about that, and was Martinez Mabili. I had forgotten about, and that was a good fight from what I remember.
That was a good fight. Yeah, okay. I happen to remember that fight. I don't remember who else was on.
I remember years ago, I could watch a card, and we could talk about that card 2 years later, 3 years later, and I could tell you who fought the 4-rounders, who fought the swing fight, who fought the main event. I can't I'm not as exposed to it today as we were at that time because it's just not on as much, but I don't remember that stuff like I did. Now, is it because it's less important now or because I'm older?
I think we have so much storage in our head. We can
I'm out of REM.
Listen, someone told me I once had an interaction with O.J. Simpson, very brief. I don't remember it. Yeah, but I remember.
How would you forget that?
An interaction I had with Donald Trump. I remember an interaction I had with Muhammad Ali, because at the time he was OJ, just a football player, commentator, and it was in the press room, and I mentioned about someone I knew who knew Bob Costas, and I was told OJ made a remark to me. Okay,
Jack, I'll tell you a funny story. It was at the Hasim Rockman Evander Holyfield fight in Atlantic City, and I went to the press conference, and I had not an altercation, but a heated interaction with Don King when he was up on the dais there, because he said something that was totally untrue, and I called him on it. And Jack, I forget what it was, but as I was walking out of the parking lot, do you remember the quarterback, Steve Bono? Yeah. I think he was on the Chiefs or the Raiders. I forget.
Vaguely.
Well, he was at the fights that night, and he went to the press conference. So we're leaving the press conference, and he walked up to me, and he says, buddy, he goes, I want to shake your... No, who was it? No, it wasn't him. Who was it? Steve Bono said something about the altercation to me later. But I forget who it was, Jack, but guy comes up to me and he goes, I've been to a lot of Don King press conferences, and I never saw anybody leave him wordless like you did. And I forget what I said. I just remember that we had interaction words. They weren't real nice. And I had him boxed in. He couldn't say anything. And that was that. And then the guy that handles the press credentials with the dark hair, what's his name?
Well, I mean, the number with dark hair, I mean, he's probably not working now. So
no, he is. He's still the credential guy.
Oh, Ed Keenan.
Ed Keenan came up to me and he said, Frank, he goes, just dial it down a little bit. And that was that.
Ed should, well, Ed should dial things down a little. You didn't do anything wrong there. But until next week, Frank, it was a lot of fun. So hope we see you next week on here. And
all right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll talk later.
Get that money, get that pain, like them colors, get your head in the cave. Get that money, get that pain, like them colors, get your head in the